Don't play yourself down. Probably to go online as well.
It's my mum.
Okay. Oh, they've got it. Well, yeah. No? Yes. There is no longer directly to that one. Where?
So we start with that.
He's done these yeah. Full side. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you found the half an hour beforehand useful. And just to note that sort of going forward, what we'll do is we'll incorporate obviously the half an hour automatically for governance. I understand it's probably difficult for people to get here at 3:30 rather than 4. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll adjust the agenda and make sure that we can keep it within that, because I think probably 6 o'clock is late enough for most people. I think we've been working during that. So we'll do that taking going forward. Lovely. Apologies for absence then. I know seeing it's not well. It goes on his way. Tell me if you've got any other? No, thank you very much. And any declarations of interest? Lovely, thank you very much. Minutes of the Council of Governors meeting previously. I won't go through page by page, but has anybody got any amendments? Shelley?
There's just a typo in 6.1. Well, I think it is. Is it not? Is it Nottingham University? Is that right? Is it Nottingham University?
Which in the third, which
In the third bullet.
bullet point? Oh no, it's not like this. Quite. Do you know, I hadn't seen that already. Yes, no,
Any link we've got there?
that's it. It's Buckingham.
And there's also something missing. So I raised in the meeting. I requested if we could have something on the trust bullying harassment action plan. Get some feedback on that.
Right.
It's not been minutes at all.
Right.
TikTok.
Okay. We pop that. Can we pop that down?
So it says I'm not, I wasn't attended, but I was virtual.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Great. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, I'm happy to approve. Thank you very much. Going on then to the action log. We've got dementia care on the agenda, so I think that covers that one off. Thank you very much.
Typo on that one as well. I thought it was Janet Page who was the lead dimensionist, not Jackie.
Yes,
It is Janet.
Yes. Sorry.
Jimmy J. Page, isn't it?
Yeah. We'll change that to Jenna. Yeah, thank you very much. That's lovely. Okay. Thank you very much. Going on to my updates. The first one is around access. This is really just so that we can take some discussions forward. I think it's been suggested in this under the meeting of the 8th of February, isn't it? Around discussing some of these things. I mean, fantastic that everybody's so keen, you know, to work and to to clarify information, that sort of thing we want on the agenda for the Council of Governors. But as the Trust Secretariat, obviously I chair both meetings, so the Trust Secretariat is very much the hub. So it gives us the consistency, and then we've got a central record of any action plans, and we can chase up things and that sort of stuff. So the recommendation that we pick this up, and actually that fits in very much with the discussions we were having some time before Christmas as well, around the informal meetings that we've been having, is actually having notes of anything coming out of that for action. So we can pull all those things together. So everybody's happy with that, we can take that forward.
In terms of, sorry, I see you. In terms of the informal meetings, we had a pre-meeting today, and one of the things we discussed was that being very much governor-led in terms of what's in the informal meetings and note taking and the actions that then that come out of that, then being sort of shared view. We'd welcome having like a secretariat or someone to assist and to report or take notes and keep you up to date. Me and my colleagues were concerned that in terms of that we don't really know what the line is between the formal and informal, and in terms of the note taking and taking things through, we need a bit more process in place.
Yeah, I think this is why, if the meeting in February, we can have this discussion. I'll hand over to Kate in a minute. The thing is, it's very important because we have a governance, the Moon Foundation Trust have a governance process anyway, and that's working with governors, but also with the trust board. And certainly my responsibility, obviously, is to make sure that the information flows, what's going through between, and what's, decisions or actions that come out of it. It's all very coordinated, and we have a record. But Kate, I don't know if you want to pick up.
I was going to say the same thing. I think it would be really helpful to come together, whether it's at the meeting that was planned in February, and just to work through. And I know there's been some informal feedback about things like governance that would like around development, around sort of looking again at the subgroups, the task and finish groups, various bits of work going on, and actually just bringing that together and doing a sort of bit of a refresh around what's working well, what needs to work differently. How do we make sure that we don't lose actions and progress around pieces of work, whatever they might be, whether it's around, non-executive recruitment, whether it's about timeframes, whether it's around what governors want to do in terms of their own development, the training that they need, any issues that arise around the role, or whatever it might be. So I think it feels to me that there's an opportunity there just to firm that up. And to make sure we've got the right arrangements in place to support the Council of Governors to be as effective as it possibly can be, and any subgroups that the council decides it needs to take forward bits of work, and to make sure that we've got one record of all of those actions, we can track them through properly, that we've got sort of good administration around it, so nothing gets lost, and we make sure that we're doing the right thing to support governors to make sure that you can fulfil your roles as fully as possible.
And I'm not sure if my colleagues have any other questions, but I was going to raise a point a little bit later about the part in the report about the NED and the governor meetups.
Oh, right. The socials. Yes. Yeah.
I sort of overall welcome this paper. There's many issues about the tone of some of it, just in terms of that, and everybody. I'm just thinking about the bit about us getting together in a pub and how dare we talk. Because inevitably, one of the things that brings us together is the fact what we have in common is the trust. So therefore, inevitably, just let me finish the point here. Inevitably, therefore, when we get together, we're going to talk about common things. Having said that, I think if we can have something more structured in place and therefore have opportunities to deal with the issues that we think are important, therefore I think that becomes a non-issue. And I think the only other thing I would want to add to what's been said is I think it's important that while we have Secretariat coming to informal, I think it's important that we have that's chaired by the governor, and we can sort out how we want to do that, whether that's bands or we do it on a rotating basis. That's something we can sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the tone isn't meant to be heavy-handed. I think it's just meant to try and to try and outline, so I suppose, when, and it's also not trying to dictate what people do in their social lives, it's entirely up to them. And it would be completely appropriate for us to do that. I think it's more around saying, when issues are raised, then as a result of that, that get together and then feedback comes through a board, it's a little bit fragmented, and it's quite hard to get the flow then of people raising issues in one setting and then coming back through a formal setting. And I think from my perspective, in terms of trying to then, get a programme together with the Trust Secretariat around development and what needs and what actions need to be followed up, it just feels quite hard to do. So really, it's just to put some, I suppose, just to open up the discussion around that, to make sure that we, if there's unhappiness around the support or around development or around issues that are being raised, so that we are able to hear that and work through it. Rather than it coming back through a process, through sort of people saying, we got together socially and actually we're quite unhappy about these sorts of things and we'd like to raise them, and then it coming back informally in sort of a slightly fragmented way. But I'm sorry if the tone was felt a bit strong.
And I accept that and thank you for that. But I mean, I did think it was equal-handed, and I also think that if you were talking about things that happened and were suggested in February, and we're only just now, nearly February the next year, thinking about implementing and working on them, I'm a bit lost in terms of, if we do have this process where we have everything limited, and I think, in fairness, at the social meetings, we all said if there was something we particularly wanted to raise, that we would all raise it. So I don't think you would have lost anything in any case, but it does strike me as slightly odd that you're talking about doing something about things from last February. I'm perplexed. I mean, I know the wheels of public service grind slow, but that's almost snare-like.
I'm not sure what that references to, so I need to take that offline. I'm happy to take that outside, Andrew, to get. I don't know what the actions were from last February that have been.
When you said when you were talking, you said that there was something that happened in February.
The meeting in this
February. Not last year. Oh, right. Okay. No, all right. Wasn't clear.
Can I just add, just for some context? I do understand exactly where we're coming from. Had something had been disclosed and overheard and it caused it, I completely understand that. I think, from what I understand, stood as a relatively new governor, perhaps the Council of Governors hasn't been as active as we seem to want to be, and I see that as an absolute positive. And I appreciate that. Therefore, there needs to be some coalescing of the executive and the board and the meds and us, and that's going to take a while to find our natural place. I completely understand the need to maintain privacy around trust issues. I think, from our point of view, just to convey that, it was a very good. It wasn't just something that we spoke about the issues and many potential disgruntlement. It was a good opportunity for us to bond and to coalesce as a group, which I think has now meant you've got an active Council of Governors, which hopefully will help to improve governance and our feedback going forward. So I think that's a positive, notwithstanding the point that I think is made in the paper. So I just felt it was useful to do that. I do also would like to echo what William's commented out just about the delineation between formal meetings and informal meetings. And I do feel, even if they're to be held here or wherever within the trust boundaries, we should have the ability to be able to speak informally, albeit with some secretarial minute taking.
I mean, to be fair, informal discussions. Everybody else. Whenever you're on a full group, you have informal discussions. Yeah. But I think as well, there's probably, we can discuss it more. I think perhaps in February is very much around capturing those things that come through and then putting it into a process. So we have a record, and actually, as I say, that reflects what I think was fed back just before. Well, it's probably October, November time. No, November, I think. previously around picking up on things, so that we know that, you know, things can be taken forward and action. But it's not, it's not.
I do have one last point, if I may, and that is very simple. There's a reference to swipe cards. I don't have a swipe card, so it might be good to do some form of audit on who has and hasn't.
Yeah.
And similarly, I still haven't been given access details to my NHS email account. And again, I think I might be missing things, so I want something to go in there. So again, I just think if we could, as a process, go through all of the council governors and understand which is their preferred email address, and if it's the NHS one, then can we have access to the account details? Please.
That's very much. I mean, I think in fairness as well, obviously with Kwame moving on, there was a lot he was trying to do before he left, in terms of there were, you know, quite a number of sort of reports and things like that. So in fairness, I think it's a question of just he's made a list for whoever takes over from him, but certainly there are things we can pick up on.
I think you're absolutely right about the very active nature of the governors that we have now, really wanting to be, you know, to do a lot more, and actually, and that we've just, you know, we've recovered after COVID, different working arrangements, and, you know, coming back together as a group, and it's just a good opportunity then to refresh and reset the governance structures around that. I will always sound heavy-handed because I'm a director of governance, so that's my job. But I appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
May I just supplementary ask, where are we at with the replacement of Kwame, or is that a future
What can we
update?
say?
So we've been out twice. We've advertised the role twice. We did a first set of interviews a few weeks ago. We weren't successful at appointing that. We interviewed again today, and we have offered the role to a candidate. And fingers crossed that candidate accepts that role. We had a good field this time around. So very hopeful that we can.
So assuming that candidate accepts, it will be a 3-month appointment from now.
Well, their situation is that they would be able to start more quickly, I would hope, in that sense. So yeah, and we have also, in the meantime, I've spoken to some interim candidates as well. So if there is a gap, we will appoint an interim to close that gap.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did. I mean, obviously, we sort of went out to our contacts. I mean, certainly, somebody I worked with in my previous trust, she was very good, and she said actually there aren't many people out there at the moment in terms of trust secretary roles. So actually, if we have managed to have somebody, that's great. That's really good news.
New governor, along with a lot of others. For me, the purpose of the meals is actually just to get to know who the other governors were, ask questions, what was expected of the other governors. And actually, it was a pleasure to meet a load of the Neds and actually ask them what they expected of the governors, because the induction we had is the General Hospital one, and after that you have to find out for yourself. And there's quite a number of us in that position, but we actually just wanted to understand the job and do it well. So that's it, really.
I think, and to that point about support that you need then afterwards around a localised induction for governors, a really important one that we shouldn't lose. So that, and we need to build something around that. But I have no desire at all to be dictating people's social lives. As I've said, it's more just around trying to get the structure right and get the balance right between informal meetings, social meetings, which are entirely up to you, and making sure that the governing body as a whole has the right support in however it meets.
And I think certainly the informal meetings that we have at the moment, that came out. I mean, we've had those probably for about a year, 18 months, I think now. And that was very much around, I'd give a brief update if there was anything in particular. And it was very informal, general sort of chats. And then obviously the feedback earlier on, later last year, was very much around formalising that a bit more and getting, or we had an email in around getting those sort of notes, at least action points coming out of it. So I think all this will be a really good opportunity to have a good discussion around this and get things in place.
And just on that point, I think it's really important to ensure equity, because we want to be able to ensure that everyone can equitably engage in the governance, that there is parity around the access and the ability for governors to engage according to their commitments, that there is shared knowledge, that they'll be following the code of governance, so that the way that the governing body works is that its power is in the governors as a group. Whilst it might delegate tasks out, it only has power to move as the council of governors as a whole. So it's just making sure that everybody's, we do all of that work to support governors in fulfilling that function. And I think one of the things I think you've asked for actually as a group previously is that govern well training, that external training that comes in and provides training on the role of governor. and the role of the governing body and the difference between the role of governor and the role of NED and etc. And NHS providers who deliver that programme. We've done it before here, actually a number of different times, really, really well. So, and have a lot of support packs available to governors. So we will organise that session for governors. I think that would be really helpful as well.
May I just ask for some clarity? On the paper, it is referred to February the 6th. And I might not be up on my emails, but on the email, I think that was, it's the 7th.
Okay, fine, yeah, sorry.
And again, not to be pedantic, but just
So we all put up on the right day.
yeah. So it is, I just want to make sure I'm there. So it's the 7th at 6 o'clock in the lecture theatre. Brilliant, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll look forward to get some agreement through it. The next item was, sorry, it's got a title now, but this came out of the Task and Finish group that we had with governors again before Christmas, and this was around work in terms of the non-executive appointment system, and so we have the I don't know if hopefully everybody was able to open flow charts as well. We had the charts as well as the description, so hopefully everybody's had that. As I say, this came out of the discussions. We've had a bit of feedback, so there are a couple of areas. I think, Shirley, you gave some feedback, I think, last night or this morning? Last night, yeah.
A few days.
Right, okay, I think I saw it last night. But anyway, and there were some points that you made that we can pick up. I mean, certainly some of them is quite straightforward. Which I'm sure governors will agree with, things like advising governors when, for instance, when an ed vacancy is coming up. I mean, yeah, that's one of the first bullet points. There was, what I was going to say is there was an issue, or there was a comment around the long listing and then short listing. And I think that's something that we could perhaps pick up in the meeting we have in February, because that wasn't something that was picked out, certainly when we had the Task and Finish group. So I think we can pick that up. I mean, obviously we've got.
Sorry for that. It's just, I was confused when I saw the long listing up there because when I was involved, it was just shortlisting got involved. And then we were involved in the long listing, and then that scrapped and it was just shortlisting. So it's been to and fro in my experience where we can actually begin our.
Oh, right, okay. My understanding has always been the shortlisting with governors.
Which previously I was involved 2 or 3 years back.
Right, it surprised me.
Whatever it is, I think we take.
We need to, yeah. Let's have a discussion rather than trying to establish it right here. That'd be great. Okay, let's put that into the meeting that we're going to have in February as well. That's all. But otherwise, I think most of the other things in terms of questions, and Shirley, you did refer to questions on the previous interviews and whether or not they were prepared in advance. There, I know there was some confusion around that, because certainly the appointments panel we had we put our questions in advance because I certainly circulated some, but I think we can make sure that probably with the shortlisting is done, we can then look at the questions as well for because we've got the interview panel. And then obviously the stakeholder groups. I think normally, particularly we have staff groups and board stakeholder groups, usually they formulate their questions themselves and to ask the candidates specifically around those roles. So we can make sure that those questions are prepared in advance. I think I'm just thinking one of the other points that you raised around scoring, I think it is, or input of governors into discussions around possible differences of opinion. I think we referenced the last process that we had. That was very much around, at that point we had governors on a stakeholder group as well as on the panel. And if you remember in the Task and Finish group that we had, we said actually having an extra governor on the panel and not just having them in the stakeholder group, because ultimately it is a governor appointment. So actually, as far as I was concerned around that, well, that was addressed in terms of the confusion that was in the stakeholder groups last time.
I mean, I think that makes sense. I remember going back a few years when Alan was leading there. He was part of the panel. That was when I was chairing the stakeholder panel.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a reinforcement.
Yeah. And certainly, just to come back as well, in terms of, you know, in terms of wanting to appoint people, there is a scoring mechanism which makes it everybody's independent scoring. And then the scores are looked at afterwards. So usually, hopefully, one candidate comes out. I know because you raised something. Again, I don't know how many of the governors have seen your email around the quiz around scoring. But the idea is that scoring is individual and it's impartial and objective. And then you bring the scores together. So from that, you bring the scores together, and then you should hopefully have a candidate that you want to appoint. And that obviously is the role of the appointments panel itself. So as I say, with some of the stuff that you've put in here, we can put into the process. We can add it to the flow that we've got. So that's absolutely fine.
Making sure it's
Yeah,
because people know, you know,
yeah.
you've got a new person coming in to be on that panel. And,
Yeah, so
What-
absolutely.
what-
And
what's
yeah,
going on?
I mean, that's the point of circulating this, is to get some feedback.
If it felt to me like this, it would really benefit from a sort of standard operating procedure, so that exactly that you could pick up a handbook as a
Yeah.
new governor and say, okay, I can step through the process and I can walk into the process and know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
So it felt to me that it would really benefit from that, and that's maybe a piece of work we can take forward together and developing that sort of standard operating procedure that can be added, sort of appended to the terms of reference of the non-exec appointments committee, so it's really clear.
Can I just, what is the process for the appointments committee? I mean, in terms of governors being on it, because I don't know which governors are on the appointment. So how does that get set up and people appointed onto that? And who is it at the moment?
So they're usually convened each time we have a non-executive vacancy. So the appointments panel is convened, and it should be a majority of governors to form part of that panel. I think it has, but as William described, it's varied over time, and I think I've only been peripherally involved actually. So I think it needs some work to standardise it.
The lead governor is always expected to be on that panel, and then other governors. This is something again we can look at in terms of, is it on a rotation? I mean, be perfectly blunt actually. Certainly since I started here, and we've had appointment processes. Kwame, our trust secretary, went out to governors and said, "Would you like to put yourself forward to?" And we didn't always have much of a response. So. Different governors, we can maybe put something in place.
I suppose there's a terminology thing. The panel sounds like it's something that we'll see convened per something, but a committee sounds like it's a standing committee.
It is,
and therefore I wonder whether there shouldn't be a terms of reference for that committee, and anyone who's on that committee signs up for those terms of reference. I don't know. I mean, it's just an idea.
Yeah.
Because normally a committee would be a standing.
It is a standing committee.
But
with the terms of reference.
But wouldn't have a constantly changing. It wouldn't be like a panel that suddenly convene.
That's right. No, it does exist. So I don't know the governor membership of the non-exec. I don't know, not off the top of my head, not without looking at it. I think I've somewhere included it in this pack actually. The terms of reference that stands. I don't think it's got a membership by name. I think it's just got a number of governors listed on there as part of the terms of reference.
So I think it might be helpful for us to
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
I believe that the council governors are supposed to prove which governors are going to be on that committee.
Yes.
So I'm on it. I ended up on it because I actually put my hand up to say I'd help with the process, and then some ran, it's committee. And then I think that's what I'm.
I'm not trying to put a project show, so I'm trying to wait. So because I think that's the point with it. It's later in the paper. We are actually going to ask the governors to convene. That's right. The committee, and so I'm just hearing that we're perhaps not clear because that needs to be convened in quite a short time frame. I think it's quite an important point that we have an action out here agreeing how and when that's going to be. Yes, I think both points are what I'm saying. I think we need to do it because we're going to need it.
Yeah, absolutely. William.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to cross over into next paper because we need to deal with that separately, but in the first paragraph, it talks about us having a standing committee. I certainly, as someone who's been involved with it, I didn't see any terms of reference. I didn't know we were a standing committee. So there's some information sharing here, there's some clarity that needs to be done. I also think as governors, we also need to slightly clear our own house in order in linking to those terms of reference. Rather than the kind of process that has been Connie phoning you up saying, are you available? Can you do it? Because you've done it before.
Yeah.
We need to have something more structured
Yeah.
that allows more people the opportunity to
Yeah.
be involved.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at a rotation with it.
So now it's whatsoever.
Oh, sorry, Matt.
No, I was going to say that right now we're in a position where we can solidify what the process is, who's on it. And as Alison mentioned before, it was basically the secretary phoning in and saying, can you do this? We're really short. But you couldn't put anyone forward and you never wanted to do it. So we're in a different position.
It is, yeah, things have changed. So this is a really good opportunity to have a reset and just go through all of this, all the governments. It'd be very helpful.
Perhaps we could have a committee from which we, if you have a committee of 6, it could be the panel of 3 or whatever. the panel is like. Then you have some consistency, but also the load is shared.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shall I take as an action then to just pull all this together, get all the right documents together, get some proposals together, and then I'll send it out for all of the governors to have a, then we can have a view on.
Yes.
On it.
Can I also ask if it's okay? It would be, I think, useful to have a schedule of all of the NEDs and associate NEDs
And the timings.
when they.
Oh, okay.
Because you don't really.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in the situation with Heidi where we want to retain our expertise, but we've got a gap if Heidi gets. So we just want a steady churn, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And that can be part of this test.
That would be really helpful.
You're doing a lot of work here.
No, it's good because it's tight on the governors. I'm not sure whether Keith or Andrew.
No, I was just.
Oh, you pointed.
Thank you. So using the experiences for 12 years as a council on Milton Keynes Council and representing the council on outside bodies as well, including recruitment of fairly senior people like the Chief Fire Officer and the Chief Constable, I think my experience would be that you probably, I wouldn't want a standing committee. I would like a panel to be convened at the time because it is it's time critical. You've got a timetable. And that means you may not always have the right people on the standing committee. Some people may not be actually in that appointment compared to another one. So my vote would be for a panel to be set up at the point of each recruitment. And I can't make the 7th of February. I've got a licensed regulatory committee. I do think something like the long listing, everyone should be involved. That's not practical with the number of people that we have as governors. There's professionals who can go through the CVs, looking at them, and then bring forward a list, long listing. That's when the panel kicks in my view, that goes to a short list. And then you're coming through a funnel and you get to the point, as Kate mentioned, for the secretary, number of people, and made an offer today. So in my view, a panel for each appointment, but Nick's point is absolutely spot on. A timetable, then if you know you're going to be away on holiday, there's going to be a long listing and a short listing, you can't really do it. And I think it should be done in person, and the way you talked about the scoring, that's the way I've done it. Gut feel is always good, but you do need to have the transparency of Nick's got him down for 5, offered him down for 7, you're going down for 3, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Joe, did you?
I firstly apologies for being late. That was definitely not my fault. Ministerial. And secondly, I know the times of this meeting has changed, and I do have another meeting at 6 over in another hospital. So, is it possible for me to jump in?
You're going to ask me to jump in.
If I may.
Probably allow you.
My execs are more than capable of doing it, but just there were 4 things that I just wanted to say. Firstly, obviously, it is the winter and the organisation is under pressure, and we are currently coping. I think it's fair to say that we are not giving our patients the experiences that we would like to give our patients, but in relation to safety and care, I think we are in a good place, and Yvonne will take questions after if necessary on that. But I think the opening, the same-day emergency care centre has come into its own over the last couple of months and really has helped. So we are coping, and also we are continuing to treat planned elective patients. And previous winters we've had to cancel all of those. So we are continuing to try and reduce our overall waiting times. So we are on that. Second thing is good news, which is that we have been given the Enabling Works monies for one programme for the new hospital development, and that is possibly the most important, depending on how excited you get about car parking. It's not car parking, it is actually the power to service the new hospital, which is around about £8.5 million. We've been given the money to do that, and if you drive around the ring road, you'll see lots of diggers digging up, and that will bring the power on site, and obviously we've got function with that, so that's great news. The other two business cases for the multi-storey car park out the back here and the diagnostic centre are going forward to the national team over the next month or so. But every step we take and they validate and give us money for is another step closer to the prize, and I can promise you a significant number of the 40 hospitals on the list have not had any money and are not taking any steps. So that's good news. The third thing then is that I have commissioned and agreed with the board 3 pieces of work. Really to focus on both the lived experiences of our staff here and ensuring that the lived experiences, particularly of minoritised voices, are match what we want the team here to experience. And that piece of work will start fairly shortly. Alongside that, we've commissioned a review of our HR policies and procedures to ensure that we have got best practice in there, again, to make sure that we are doing the right thing. And then the final piece of commission is for the governance of board information, to make sure our board is receiving the right information to be able to take the appropriate decisions. I don't need to tell you, I'm sure you know, we have got a fantastic staff survey. That's not the point. The point here is we can always be better and do more. And so we will get those 3 pieces of work in play. One's already started, 2 are in train. And then the final thing is just pick up something that Kate said about being heavy-handed. I'm really clear as the chief exec that having seen a couple of reports lately, unfortunately, or depending if it's your career choice, fortunately, governance plays a massive part in a public institution, and we have to make sure that everything from is it a committee or is it we really need to be absolutely clear on this. So I know it might not be everybody's bread and butter, but cup of tea, but it absolutely is important. I don't see it as heavy, I see it as critical to running a organisation.
I think, and it dovetails as well with the work we can do with council of governors as well, because we have new people around the table and that enthusiasm to be involved. So we can, those 2 pieces of work, I think is a good timing to have it all done together.
Any really difficult questions, feel free to ask.
Thanks.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Okay, I'm just thinking in terms of those 2 pieces. Hopefully that's, yeah, I think we've got a note of what we're taking forward actually to have further discussions on, and we will have some very robust things, I'm sure, at the end of all that. The next item under my section was around height appointment, and I know this was done and circulated around to governors for approval. So actually this is sort of, again, tidying up the governance, bringing it to the meeting so that we can have that long. So,
That's right.
yeah. And I think the next one, I think I have to.
I think you have to leave.
You do, I have to go.
Yeah,
That's
we'll be back.
Don't beat me up.
You don't hear from us for an hour, you know this.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that I won't read through the note it explains itself really. So Alison is obviously served her term of 3 years on 31st of January. And normally I think there would be, this conversation earlier was a good conversation about this, but so there hasn't yet been an appointments committee to discuss this. So that's what needs to happen, is the non-executive director appointments committee of the Council of Governors need to convene a meeting to agree the appointment of Alison for her 2nd term. That's why I thought earlier it was quite important that we do agree.
a committee so that that can then happen. Because we've really only got till the 30th of January, which is 6 days to do that.
We had a discussion about this earlier, and the thought was that this is all very tight and actually unfair on Alison in a sense, because we haven't done the process in a timely manner, and whether or not we could ask that her position be extended for a couple of months so that we can go through the process properly with the convened committee and everything else.
I think, there doesn't seem to be when we had our discussion, it was around there's no report, but obviously now we understand that we need to have the committee in place. We just want to make sure that the process is followed through properly. We all accept that Alison is a very good chair. We understand we understand how the way she works and the good work that she has done. However, in the background of all the other missing processes that we governors are still sort of unpicking, we'd like this to be one that is followed through, so we have a process so that we actually can appoint her properly. And it was a suggestion that whilst there's no process, why can't we extend in order to then?
So it's in the gift of the council to determine that, if you're comfortable with a short extension in order that we can carry out a process.
I think, were you going to say something? I think so.
I think something like, say, a 3-month extension to give enough time, because one of the things we were talking about earlier on is we don't really know who the appointments committee is. It's been random, so I think we need to get that bit of work, and then we need to get that committee set up and considering. And so I think the important thing is that, as we said, it's nothing to do with Alison. It's making sure that we get the process right.
It comes back to what Nick said. If we had a timetable, we wouldn't be in this. It's got to be done by the end of January. Sitting here on the 24th of January, we would have looked at this in October or September last year and gone through a process that we now deferred for 2 or 3 months.
Yes.
Am I right in thinking it would be really good for us to have a sort of report from the senior independent director, just a report and a recommendation, probably, just to come to our committee? I think that would be good governance. We'd really like to see that, because some of us are so new, and actually just having that in front of us, as we have for other non-execs, it seems crazy that we would have reports on non-execs about their performance and why we should reappoint, but not on our chair, which is the most important.
So one of the reasons that the appointments committee is a standing committee and not just convened in the event of a reappointment is because the role includes appraisal and performance review.
Which is never done.
Which has never been done. Yeah, so I think that's definitely missing, and should so had that been the case, then one would expect that a concurrent second term is usually uncontroversial, because you probably expect a term to roll over. Heidi, to use you as an example, you were more extraordinary because we were agreeing, the council were agreeing for a third term, which is more unusual, but still within the what's permissible under the code. So I think we can go through all of that. We can look at then actually how you're going to sort of inform your decision making, and do that for this appointment. I suppose that we need to deliver that message clearly back to us around this about process rather than.
So I think yeah, don't think any of us thought that we would say no, we don't want us to have a second term, but we just want the process there.
So I think what we're agreeing is then to extend by 3 months in order that we can appropriately convene an appointments panel with the right expertise and with the right information needed to do this robustly.
Yes, that would get my support.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the point around documentation measure, I think so. Alison has an appraisal. I did an appraisal. Can't think of the timing now, but whenever the timing was, so that appraisal exists, and there would be another one obviously happening in the year going forward. So that kind of document, and I think we just need to be clear, Kate, what formal report, etc., would be the context for that, so that we don't do something that steps outside of anything that is used by trusts. And
The group did get a really good one for you, and that was really good. It covered almost everything. I think there was only, one didn't actually say anything about attendance, which is, normally in the annual report anyway, but you haven't had to all work together, just, I mean, Department did a really good job on that. I think it was an excellent format, so I think we've got the format.
You've got the format. Yeah. Well, don't get me started on attendance, Shirley. I'm always, when Kwame does it, I'm like, no, I was at every single one. Don't start me on that. So perhaps I think it's quite important, the words that we say back to Alison. And do we tell Alison when she comes back in the room?
I think what we're saying, I think, is yes, I think if you say nothing, then she wants to be absolutely wonder what's on. I think what we're saying is that we want to extend, we want to do an initial extension, which does need to be documented, so that it's a decision rather than it's just time has passed and we're out of time, in order that we can run the process appropriately, in order that we can that the appointments committee can consider her next term according to
I think it's important to reiterate, it's not a comment.
Not about the process, comment on the process that we need to.
It's just a comment.
Time to do the process properly.
To your point about good governance, there's only one sort of governance that we're interested in. Good governance.
Do we need that extension to be 3 months, or can it be 2 months?
Well, we can do it quicker. I think that's, but I'm happy for it to be 3 months and then we beforehand.
Up to 3 months.
Yeah, I'll probably
We started before you came at 1 month.
Well, I appreciate, as Joe said, you're under a lot of pressure as an organisation. So it's going to place a burden on.
That's the most important thing in everyone's agenda.
So we've told the formal process through the committee within the next 3 months.
Yeah.
And then it'll come back to
as governors, the tone of our meeting was that we are really engaged. I think we are very positive. Lots of new people. The older people are really giving us great advice, and we seem to have coalesced as a very positive set of people. Sorry, old people.
We know what you meant.
You can't have it. But so that I just wanted to say that this is a really positive move, and I think we, as much as anyone else, are really interested in good and strong governance. That's what we're here for. And I think that I hope that we're going to be giving more positive feedback and enabling our voice to be heard in a really positive way. So that's
I hear that really strongly. Yeah, thank you. I think that's really wonderful for the organisation to have so involved and engaged governments. It's really.
That's what we would tell. I would tell Alison.
if you want to
If you show you, that'd be great. Thank you. Doug now, and it says the word old.
My shot. Don't let you worry too early yet.
Coffee. So thank you. Thank you. That had a good conversation.
Great.
The governors absolutely want to tell you how much they enjoy working with you as a chair. And they are also really engaged as a group of governors, and some of them are new governors to the table, but also as a larger group. And what they have talked about in the meetings, that what they want to be able to do is to do the process properly, because they feel that just does justice to appointments that they are making. And he says that they are, if they were looked at how they've done their process, that they're doing it to the best of their abilities as a governing team. So what they would like to do, and I think Kate and I think this is a good way forward, is to do an extension of 3 months for your current tenure.
Oh, okay.
So that within the next 3 months, they will put into place the new process, which will be that there is a committee arranged and agreed, and then that committee will sit and we've agreed what information they would like to look at to be able to appropriately appoint for a second term. Right. Absolutely, it's not a comment about you or anything. I think it's more a comment about now we've agreed the process and how we want to work. The committee thinks that it's right to put that in place for the appointment as they step forward.
Absolutely.
And I think that sounds very sensible.
It's very sound. Yes, after all the discussions we've just had.
Exactly,
You know, and I think Keith and Shelley and Rachel, you know, we were talking about it's 6 days otherwise to get it done by a date. And it does seem rather, it would seem rather foolish to put ourselves forward into that space to make that. We talked about doing things, through a different process and appropriate process.
Small thing, I think we said up to 3 months.
I'm quite right. I have written, yes, within the next 3 months. So it has to be done before that. So it can be done within 2 months. Yeah, depending how we get the information and
Absolutely.
committee arrange.
It's very sound. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Good. I'm glad you had a good conversation as well. Smashing. I think that's the end of my section, isn't it? I think it says it is. Yes. Right, I'm very aware of the time, but hopefully we should be, because I know Maxine obviously won't be presenting because she's not well. And I think as you and I talked earlier around your report might be sort of fairly thick ones that right. Yeah. Smashing. Chief Exec's update we've had, and it's the capital programme update.
So I'm happy to cover that.
Oh, you thanks.
Yeah, Joe touched on some of the strategic programs part of his update. But the papers there on page 25 and 26 of the pack. So I'll just give a few more little details around it. So we've got the 5 major areas. First is the Community Diagnostic Centre. That's a 2-site development and as part of the national programme. So we've got one site up and running already at White House Park. That's covering endoscopy, imaging, cardiac physiology. The second site is at Lloyd's Court, which is refurb of an existing retail facility right in the centre of Milton Keynes. And that's going to be mainly focused around ophthalmology. So that's first area, CDC. That's going very well. We also have a SALEX decarbonisation programme. That's also on track. That's part of it is this year, and also goes into next year. So that's about making our site more carbon neutral. And so it's replacing Windows, HSDU, and MHT. So that's been phased in and trying to the minimal impact around our clinical services. The third scheme is, well, 2 schemes, Urology Investigation Unit and Milton Mouse, which are both schemes which are reconfiguring existing spaces to make them better and more fit for purpose. Milton Mouse will be complete before the end of this financial year, and Urology Investigation Unit that's started already and will be completed during next year. The fourth area is the Radiotherapy Centre. So that's a joint scheme with Oxford University Hospitals. We're building and commissioning the building, and they will run the radiotherapy service, which includes commissioning of the equipment and providing staff. So the construction is almost complete. You'll be through past it possibly. That'll be in the early part of the next financial year. But the first patient won't be treated until September because the building has to be commissioned, the equipment commissioned, and also they need to have CQC approval. That will be in the hands of Oxford to do that. And finally, last but not least, there's a new hospital programme. So Joe touched on that already. It's progressing really well. We've got 3 enabling schemes. One has been approved. The other 2 is going to board for approval and Finance Investment Committee for approval internally, and then we'll go to the new hospital programme. And meanwhile, all of the design work is going ahead. We had a visit from the new hospital project team a couple of weeks ago. They did what they call a deep dive. Very happy with that. So those were all the main areas of the strategic schemes. I'm going to take any questions. Thank you very much, Keith.
Thank you very much. And note, following from what Joe said about the high voltage works, something close to my heart. Every scheme we come across now, you've got to think is there enough power in the area to start?
Yeah.
My question therefore is, how much extra is being laid in? Is it just for what we know now, or we put 50% up on top because we don't want to go through another HV in 4 years' time? So maybe it's a technical question, you may want to respond to it.
Yeah, I couldn't answer
At
that.
least it's, hopefully there's quite a lot of headroom on top of what
Yeah,
we're actually going to need.
I would expect that they've built in future requirements, but I can come back to you formally.
That's right. It was all very, very positive. So thank you
Yeah.
for
That's
the good news.
Two very quick questions. PAU, in reference to Milton House, what does that mean?
Business as usual.
Oh, yeah, BAU, but it says PAU.
It's
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. And NHP?
You
Nulos.
Yeah, I think.
Acronyms. I make a TIA as much as anyone. I'd like to understand what they mean.
Yeah,
It's all right, it's all right, Nick, that when you get to BLP, you can go there.
I think one of our governors did raise use of acronyms, and actually, and I sympathise with this a great deal because I find the strategic estates programme quite hard to engage with, in terms of some of the language used about, not simplifying the language, but providing a glossary of acronyms so that it's not impenetrable.
Yeah.
As long as people don't mind my asking, I don't.
Yeah, I think it's,
on the job.
I think that's right, and I think lots of people are in the same position, and so we'll try and produce something that either includes it as part of a sort of pack that's regularly updated or in each paper.
Yes, yeah. I think so. I think all areas of work. I know when I was doing legal work, I mean, there's so many acronyms and that, and then you come into the NHS, actually, it's probably even more. I think.
What you need is a non-technical person, not a lay person to proofread and say, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Google's good.
Lovely, thank you. Any other questions on the update? Lovely, great stuff. Inclusion and leadership update. Apologies, as I think probably you're all aware, I've been spending some time at home, so I haven't actually managed to write out something, but I've got my notes and I would just do a verbal update. At the meeting in November, there was looking back at Black History Month, and the feeling was from the Inclusion Leadership Council that it was very empowering. There was some great engagement, lots of feedback from people. It was a very busy month. So they felt that lots of positive work came out of that, but the emphasis as well on what was fed back was around actually it's not just the month, it's keeping things going, through the rest of the year, which is absolutely right. Obviously, Kwame's gone to Papworth. That was another thing that was raised. Now there was the Denny review, which the Integrated Care Board and the system commissioned. I know it was attached to our board report, which is circulated to governors, but if anybody would like that, it's a very interesting piece of work actually around, it's very focused on population health. So what I was wondering is whether it would be beneficial to have it circulated, obviously electronically, to governors again, for anybody that hasn't had it. Would that be useful? Yeah, thanks. Timmy, could you log that for me, please? Thank you very much. There are sort of 4 key areas. It's around inequalities, and there's cultural competency, communication, access, and representation, particularly in changes to healthcare, across the piece. So it's a great piece of work and a huge amount of partnership working to pull that all together. Health Watch and many others. Joe's already mentioned it. There was discussion around the lived experience work that is now being commissioned and going through the organisation. But as I say, Joe's already covered that. There was feedback from the different networks. They really are beginning to pick up quite a lot, actually, which is great, and but always keen to expand. And I think the Women's Network in particular now has a chair, which is great. So that's picking up again. Obviously, we need those individuals who are happy to put their hands up and just keep the thing going, which is great. And there were references to e-care and improvements around notes. Things like that, because we've got a veterans network, they were saying when veterans come in, they want that to be able to be flagged up because obviously we've got support for them and they have very particular needs to so many others. But faith and care requirements, violence and aggression, that type of thing. So that's been fed back as well. So it's great actually. There's more and more coming through from that council, and obviously we're still looking at ways of developing that and asking staff to have an input. So that would be my update from that. So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you. Going on then to the HR update. There's the paper, hopefully this came out of questions from CAPS actually, I think, after the, I think it was at the annual meeting last, I can't remember. I think, yeah, there was some, anyway, there was some annual reports and things that came through and we had some questions. So this paper is just to pick up on those things where there were questions around what did certain things mean and what did it involve, which I think is actually very useful. So I don't know if anybody had any comments or questions on the paper. Hopefully it's clear, Andrea.
Yeah, the paper's really clear.
Yeah.
I was just thinking back, and then the paper made me reflect on it, that the conversation we had with, I think it was finance gentleman talking about the 2 new boards. And I was quite surprised that he didn't see that there was time to think about who you were going to employ in those boards. And I just wondered how the time to hire,
yes,
is agreed. You know, because to me, if you're building 2 boards which are going to be open in 2 years, you need to be starting.
Right. Yeah.
I might answer that, and it may not be the correct answer. But so when it looks like a hospital is opening 2 new wards, we actually make those wards behind it to refurbish. And so we use them in different ways. It's not maybe as straightforward as we're just going to open up 2 brand new wards. There are other opportunities that we use when these kind of things happen. So it is an iterative process that grows along a much more prolonged period of time. I just want to give you that insight.
Yeah.
That's what it's like for me as the chief nurse.
Yeah.
That sometimes we will look at, or there's better facilities in one ward than another.
Well, his response was, we'll go abroad 6 months before they're open. So that was my concern. It just.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, I think that's something we can keep coming back to, you know, in terms of recruitment and things, and particularly when new facilities are coming on board. I mean, I'm sure everybody's aware, you know, the challenge nationally now is really actually enormous. So there is something around that supply chain, you know, encouraging, making it attractive for people to come in. So we know in a few years' time in their training that we've got them to. Any other questions? Sure.
Just about that time to hire, I can understand why HR would use like from the advertised date till, you know, sort of start the offer, because that's kind of like when they come to the process. It's easy for HR to track maybe. But I just wondered whether or not you think about losing something in timescales before then, because when I retired, I get 5 months notice, and then nothing happens for 2 months. Before then it started actually thinking, oh, well, that's the job description, you know, put it out to advert. So, you know, given those timescales, then I thought I'd given enough time so that somebody would be able to, you know, get something straight away. There would have been a gap. It's only because I ended up with actually their second choice, it was internal. Who was then able to sort of like come in at time.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think quite a lot of these metrics are very much defined NHS wide, so that we're able to consistently compare organisations.
Yeah.
So we can obviously.
You don't know if you've got issues somewhere with, you know.
Yeah, and certainly I know that vacancy panel, when we look at things and forms, one of the things we always look at is when did the person resign, and if there's a gap, we would be questioning why have you spent a period before you have come forward to seek authorization to recruit. So it is something that we look at, but this I would imagine is something that's stepped down
Can I just clarify this? That actually, at the time to find out is across HR and corporate as well. It's the same thing. This is a specific metric. The life cycle, what we would call life cycle, would also include then when somebody resigns from a post. That's a different metric. So that there is another standardized metric that we would look at for that. Whether we've got that, I'm sure we probably do, but that would be a different metric.
Great, thanks.
Just looping back to the point that Andrew was making, one of the things that I felt would be useful, which is about planning, is if we have some view of what the needs are going to be over the next 2 to 3 years, rather than focusing on specific ones, which I think we should do as well, by the way. But so there's that little bit of a, here's what we're going to need over the next 2 or 3 years, and what there might be versus the existing workforce at the moment, and what metrics we can pull. And I think I don't know the answer to whether that exists or not. I know I've asked the question before. I don't know, Jason, or you don't, whether it's not, whether Danielle has that.
Not much.
No, because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I know from conversations I've had in sort of subcommittees over the time that I've been here, often, you know, when people do move on or retire or whatever, often that's seen as the time, and people look at the skill mix, you know, then what's needed, and you look ahead to see what the service needs. So I think sometimes there is a lag then to see whether do you just want to replace the same, or do you want to look at something different. So I think there's quite a number of factors in it. But as you say, yeah, my understanding was that this is a specific metric because it makes it easy nationally to then measure it and make comparisons. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure if it fits or not, but on training of nurses and other jobs, when they've been trained by the NHS or the university hospital, do they then, when they're qualified, do they have to serve like a couple of years? Can they go anywhere? Can they go through the country? Because it's public money, public fund, they've all been trained. Do we train them and use them, or can they just panic?
So I'll answer that. They're out there living. Our job is to make this a really attractive employer that develops their skills. When a nurse is newly registered, that's a really scary time. So we've got a brilliant preceptorship program that goes on between 6 months and a year. The minute that ends, we then need to think about the specialist skills they will want to learn, and in particular, they will want to develop and acquire clinical skills. So we're in this really interesting position that a lot of organisations haven't been for many years. We're fully established, we're fully recruited. That creates with it another challenge. And so instead of trying to fill our vacancies now, our whole attention is, it must be on the retention of those individuals. And it comes back to your point. So you're not necessarily always replacing the same post. You might think we're working on the urology investigation unit. Actually, I'd like to see some consultant nurses in there where they're doing new and different things in the organisation. So that evolves as time goes by, and it takes you a long time to think those things through. So I'd have a workforce plan for those kind of things to work out. But our nurses, we want them to have a really good experience, to be welcomed into our NHS family. And that's where the focus of our work is, on trying to give them careers in which they can flourish, and they really, really will want to be able to flourish.
So your retention is incentivized by further training.
Yeah, so I've done an awful lot of work on retention in nurses, and actually not in this country, in Scotland. And it was at the time of which austerity, it's right in the middle of austerity. The Scottish government were particularly anxious about what the findings of this report would be. And they thought, the focus of people's attention would be on money. Not. It's on, am I getting the skills and career development that will allow me to progress into different areas of practice, things that make me passionate, or allow me to access higher grades. So you've got to focus on, are you giving them a suite of skills that allows their career to flourish? And that's really
so develop.
It's all development, but it's proper development. It's not just a little study day here and there. Nurses really want to learn. They really, really want to deliver outstanding care to their patients, and you have to be able to enable them to do that.
Thank you. Emma, did you?
Just a quick question, because we've been talking about recruitment and retention and stuff like that, and you said about, for example, if there's a gap between one person leaving and the other person looking for the next job, is that only clinical staff? Are the same procedures applied to the non-clinical posts?
Yes, it's all staff. So we have a RTP, which is a resource control panel, which looks at all recruitment and also agency and bank. That's the same process for everything's scrutinised.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll move on because we've got some presentations, even though I know later on in the agenda we've got less to actually present. So Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm just wondering, is a colleague online?
They're here.
Yes, we're here.
Sorry.
We're here.
It's just looking at you as if you were governors. I do beg your pardon.
No,
Oh,
no.
that's good.
Yes,
I do beg your
When
pardon.
you hear our story, I don't think you want it.
Hi. Yeah, well, yes, we've got the presentation. So welcome to you both and thank you very much for coming along.
Okay.
See the council.
Thank you very much. Before we start the presentation, we'll just introduce ourselves. Pab, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm Pab. I'm an alcoholic, in recovery, obviously.
Joe, alcoholic, also in recovery. Do you want to talk a little bit about your story?
Yeah, I'm very briefly. I know I don't look like an alcoholic, obviously, but I am, and I had serious problems with alcohol around about, well, I suppose the age of 27, 28. And I didn't know. It's one of these things we often say it's like an illness of denial. What was happening to me, I had a lot of, problems around going to work, maintaining my relationship with my partner, and, obviously guilt over not being sort of really there for my children enough. And gradually it got worse. My drinking got worse, and I seemed to sort of answer all my questions using drink because it made me feel better, but momentarily. And my wife had the really good sense to divorce me, and she found a newer model. Fair play to her. We got on well today. So I was, as I say, about 31 when she done that, and I just went. Really, I just did because I had no restrictions. It seemed to me. I worked in construction. It was very flexible. It was a drinking culture in construction. It was actually approved of drinking, maybe not to the extent that I was drinking. I was drinking on a daily basis. I started to have symptoms where like numb spots and on my legs and back pains, which I thought was just a bit of a backache because of the job I was doing, but it wasn't. It was more to do with my liver, I always made excuses as to why I needed to drink. Now I needed to drink because my wife was divorcing me, and anybody would do that, and it sounded really feasible to me and actually correct. And I, eventually it got worse. Basically got worse. I couldn't work. I was drinking really whenever I could get the money, and sometimes when I couldn't get the money, I'd be looking at people that I know. I was a heartbreak to my family, really. They were scared that I was going to pass away because of the way I was drinking. I had DTs and I had, jaundice, stuff like that. So it wasn't great. And I attended my first meeting in 1988, Alcoholics Anonymous in Leighton Buzzard. And that was my first introduction to AA. It took me a year, believe it or not, to recognise that I was really an alcoholic because I thought I was too young. I was 32. And when it did hit, I got my children back. I got everything going for me. It was great. My wife had still gone with the guy that she was with, fair play as well. And I was a single parent. And within 2 weeks, I was drinking again after all I knew. And that was when the penny dropped. And that was when I actually got involved in AA and started to go through a program with a sponsor, the guy that helped me to recognise what I was. And because of that, you see me sitting here today. As a result of, like stopping drinking entirely. Amazing things happen when you stop drinking, when you concentrate all that, whatever, into something positive. I was able to go to college, I was able to get a degree, I was able to do all sorts of different things. I was able to be a dad for my children as well, which is really, the main thing. And I'm very grateful to what Alcoholics Anonymous did. And the reason we're sitting here today is because we want to explain to people that in order for us to stay sober, we have to carry the message of hope to people that have this condition, and probably we're best placed in some respects to do that because we've been through we've heard all the stories, we know all the excuses, and maybe people when they're in the right space and the right place in their head will listen to what we say and identify some of the things that we say, not everything, but certainly some of the things. So I've got nothing but positivity to talk about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know it helps. Saves lives, saves some of my friends. Some of my friends died as a result of this condition, this illness. Anyway, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing. And what an incredible advocate you are for the organisation.
Thank you.
Ditto Pab's story, but I came in without, having lost everything, educated,
had everything, trappings of life. But, you know, I'm an alcoholic. I drank and I couldn't stop drinking. And the only place that could stop me drinking was Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12-step program on a daily basis. You know, and I've been around, knocking around now for 25 years. So, you know, the sort of, oh, you know, it does work. It really, really does. So we'll get on with our presentation. We're going to stand up because you can't actually see the slide. It's going to be a bit of a trouble.
Unfortunately, we have got them. Those of us who have got laptops, I think we've got
on the screens as well.
Yeah, we've got on the screens. Yeah.
Okay. So today's presentation, really, we want to talk about AA in general terms and AA Milton Keynes. Share a background on what it is and what it isn't, because there are lots of myths about AA, you know, it being a religious organisation. We want to bust some of those. I want to touch briefly on the nice quality standard 11, because it does affect AA and potential healthcare specialists, and really give you some ideas on how we may offer support for you. And hopefully you finish with some questions. So how does AA view alcoholism? Well, we know alcoholism is a progressive illness. Sorry, can you move the slide up, please?
Yes, I am. It's just slow.
Okay.
The wonderful technology. There we are.
Ah, right, okay. It's a progressive illness. It just gets worse. We know that. But with people going back out and coming back in, it just gets worse and worse. It never gets better. If you have a problem with alcohol, stop. That's the only way we can, you know, get well and stay well. And it affects us physically and mentally, and it's not a self-inflicted lifestyle choice. Many people think we do it on purpose, and we don't. We're powerless over alcohol. Yeah, we've lost the power over our drinking. We have, you know, we just cannot stop. And certainly in my experience, the 12-step program was the only thing that helped me to get sober. And the best thing, it helps me to stay sober long term. You know, it's all very well stopping, but staying stopped is the issue. So if you want to talk about the next slide, Gav.
Yeah, so Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. As I said earlier, you know, this is a common problem with people of our kind that come to AA. And we share about some of the things that happened to us and what happened after that. And actually people get hope when they realise that actually we've been through some of the things they've been through. And we've come out the other side of that. So they see, you know, people that come into it, they see that as a real positive. That actually, maybe I wasn't as bad as Pab or as Joe. You know, actually, there's a chance here. If that idiot can do it, I'm sure I can do it. You know, I know I felt like that as well when I went to meetings and I was listening to them. So the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. That's all we ask out of people. If you decide to stop drinking, and even if they haven't, we really don't push them out. We, you know, allow them to run their own course. But there are no dues or fees for AA membership. We're self-supporting for our own contributions. And we do that because we don't want to get into a situation where we need to rely on other organisations or institutions to fund us. So we're self-funding. And it's a very important one for us, actually.
Yeah, we need to retain our independence. So we carry the message, which is our primary purpose. You know, we don't want to dilute the message of what we have to say, because, you know, if we start diluting the message, then we can't save lives. So if you can, brilliant. So yeah, I've mentioned it's a program of recovery, the 12 steps of AA, and it's you know, it helps us stay sober over the long term. And it's, you know, I heard messages from people who came in before me, and I got sober. I know I carry that message to other AAs who are coming in. And it's based on very principles of our early founders. And it's an ongoing programme, which, you know, I've chosen and we choose to do, you know, every day of our lives. Because if we walk away from the fellowship, it's no guarantee that we will remain stopped. So I continued going to AA because, you know, I want to stay sober, because I know I know how bad it is out there, and you know, Paz mentioned that it's in a potentially an illness of denial. You know, AA, you know, alcoholism will tell us we're not alcoholics, and that's, you know, it's so hard to get people into the fellowship and get them to stay.
Despite the fact that I'd lost everything, I still thought it wasn't drink. It's weird, isn't it? And you know, my wife was like, you know, this, I can't do this anymore. So yeah, best denial.
Absolutely. And the 12 traditions, basically the 12 steps are there to help us not rip ourselves apart, and the 12 traditions are there to keep the organisation together, so we're a unified voice, because we're not organised in a traditional organised way. Tradition 3, the only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking, and that's free to anybody, or free to referrals, free to anybody who wants to use our service. We don't, you know, endorse, finance or lend the A&M to any related facility or outside enterprise in case, you know, they cross our path and dilute our primary purpose. And we attract, but we don't promote. We remain personally anonymous. And we have what we call non-alcoholic trustees, who are the face of AA and who speak for us. We're happy to speak on the radio, in, you know, in the public domain like this, but you know, on the level of press, radio and films, you know, we remain anonymous.
Yeah. I mean, I've done talks on the radio just about myself, about my life, but I always offer my name as, say, Steve. It's quite exotic, actually. I quite like that, but that's only really to protect people that know me, because I might be comfortable with this, but people that know me might not be comfortable, or family members might be embarrassed by the fact that I'm declaring myself.
Yeah. And you know, I don't know if any of you saw the BBC Two documentary, I'm an Alcoholic Inside Recovery. That went to the first programme that we allowed inside the rooms. I think deep fake technology, so we could have face-on-face people speaking about their alcoholism and how they work the programme. And I think it's still on iPlayer. It was on BBC Two last December. And the spike in telephone calls was, you know, went up by 50–60% as a result of that programme. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting documentary. It was made independently, you know, from us. So it was quite interesting to see how, you know, their perspective. So what we're not a professional organisation like a hospital, for example. You know, we don't work in, everything we do is on a voluntary basis. And volunteers work at every level. Pav works, he's at intergroup, he's at region, what we call region, and I'm one of the trustees for AAGB. And as we've mentioned, we're not allied with anybody, because we want to maintain our primary purpose, which is to carry the message. And we're not religious either. People get really upset about the God word, and all it is, you know, when I was drinking, you know, alcohol was a power greater than me, and it was a very negative power, and it ripped me apart, and I let it. So I just need to have a little bit of faith that things are going to be okay in my life by not taking a drink one day at a time. And my life has changed completely, utterly and completely. I'm a different person inside. Have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, as I said, when I first came in, I was really looking for a reason for them to kick me out of AA. You know, and if they weren't going to kick me out, then I'm not going to do their program. But the consequence of that was, after 6 months, I did drink again, even though I was going to meetings every single night. It wasn't enough to maintain that brain that I had, the problem I had in my mind that told me that I haven't got something that I actually have got. And I listened to that voice, and I went out and I got drunk, and I ended up, you know, arrested or something. I don't know what happened. It was only when I accepted that I'm an alcoholic and that I would, you know, like, take the program on board that I got sober.
Getting to the nice policy standard 11, this was revised in July 2023, and it has 5 new policy statements. And statement 2 requires that adults seeking help for an alcoholic use disorder are given information on and support to access community support networks and self-help groups. And it's through the extensive research of the Cochrane report, it's shown that the 12-step facilitation programme, not necessarily AA, but 12-step programme, is as good as other sort of opportunities to deal with sort of a similar, you know, illnesses such as mental illnesses such as cognitive behavioural therapy. But I think the key thing that the research has shown is that the 12-step program allows people to stay stopped long term, and that, you know, in that way it's much more sort of superior, as it were, you know, and we can arrest our illness on a daily basis, which I think is so positive. And it also potentially will help the health sector, because it means that if we're arresting our illness early on in life, then we're not looking at, you know, wet brain, liver cancers, so on and so forth. So the more we can, you know, work together, I think the better, you know, more lives will be saved, and potentially you can reduce your healthcare costs.
Can I just say, the steps, the first few steps are really dealing with how we used to be, you know, and looking at ourselves honestly, so that we can recognise where we were doing certain things, and then we're able to go on and make amends for some of the things that we did to the people that were trying to help us and advise us or whatever. And then the last 3 steps of our programme help us to maintain that sobriety on a daily basis. So keep it in the day. It's the last 3 steps that do that for us. Yeah.
There are about 15 meetings in Milton Keynes, AA meetings. 13, I think, are face-to-face meetings, and we've got a couple that are online. But with the advent of COVID, AA went online pretty much overnight, and, you know, we can access meetings 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there's no excuse not to engage in the fellowship. Absolutely not at all. So in terms of what we potentially can bring, if you want it, we can do patient-specific meetings where we're DBS checks and people go in and meet patients face to face. We take safeguarding really, really seriously, obviously, because we're dealing with vulnerable people all the time. You know, Pab and I, we're sober, you know, for, you know, a considerable period, but we're still vulnerable people. We're all, you know, all in it together, as it were. We can do sponsored meetings where these are, again, for people who are in hospital, open to healthcare professionals, again, you know, specific volunteers, and it's all very well managed and maintained. Or we can have or we can have, you know, standard open meetings, you know, where anybody can come in, any alcoholic can come in off the street and be part of the meeting.
In my first year, I was actually to say, in my first year, I went to, I was regular then going to meetings. There was one in Fairfields Hospital every Friday. A Dr. Leslie there, who was kind of really open to AA, allowed us to come in, and we bring somebody, a speaker along, like we're doing today in a sense, and they'd share. And if the patients wanted to say something, you know, they could say something. You know, that's it.
Yeah. And the other area is we can give talks to you. You know, we can share our experience, strength, and hope, and you know, give you, you know, examples of how we can help. And we can do what we call open meeting workshops, where we get a whole meeting to come along to one of your, you know, training facilities. We have a, you know, share our experience, strength, and hope, like we did, just like Pad did right at the beginning. And then we're open to any questions that are thrown at us, really. Because I don't know if anybody of you has actually worked with alcoholics, but, you know, when we're drinking, we're impossible. People think, you know, why are they doing this to, you know, themselves? Why? It's because we don't know any different. We really don't. And it's only until we come to the fellowship that we actually get an idea of, actually, there is a life beyond this, really. We can, you know, establish contacts with local government and other wellbeing teams to offer support. We can display literature, bring it in for you, obviously with your permission. You know, we wouldn't just walk into the streets and, you know, here's our literature kind of thing. And liaise with any, you know, liver specialist nurses, alcohol nurses, you know, we work at any level, absolutely any level. And you've obviously got the slides, and we've got, you know, information on where to get further information. We've got a website, we've got online response, chat now, that kind of thing. And it's not done by a robot, it's actually people. It's person-centred.
It's a huge relief, actually.
But absolutely no bots. No. We're dealing with people who, you know, might go and talk themselves, you know, but I was going to kind of thing. So
we have brought some literature and books and stuff like that, you know, you're welcome to have.
Thank you.
If you want them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Some good documents there.
Yeah, we'll leave it for you. And Edward he's not here today, but he's our health liaison officer for Milton Keynes. And this is his little card. So if you know, think of something afterwards or want to contact us afterwards, do give Edward a ring and he will be able to help you.
And secondly, we've got the local telephone number. Now we've set up our own telephone service for Milton Keynes because we realise this is a city and it's you know, this is really helpful for locals really. So the numbers on there, the business cards, you can take some of those and have a look at those and hand them out if you wish to. And we can get you some more if you need them as well.
Thank you both.
That's it really. Are there any questions? Yeah, we like questions.
Yeah, I was just thinking, apologies, slightly rejigged the agenda today and the governor's met for half an hour, so we've cut into the time. What I'm thinking is maybe a couple of questions if there are any, but I'm very keen, Yvonne, I don't think can we take, I just think this is great.
So I was thinking here, would you like us to bring this back as our presentations? Is that what you'd like us to do for dementia, for feeding at risk?
Would you mind? I feel sorry.
Sorry, so sorry, ladies. But it'll give you an opportunity to have a look at what's in the presentation, and then we'll have more meaningful questions when we come back.
Yeah,
next.
Will everybody be happy with that? It seems like a reasonable. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. It's really been wasted. Thank you.
When's the next seat?
Don't worry. But yes, thank you. Both incredibly powerful, you know, your personal experiences. Yeah.
Just going to ask, do you know whether AA is already in this hospital or is it not?
No.
No.
Not. It used to be.
Used to be.
Yeah, I was going to say because there certainly used to be an article on the detox nurse. I used to work that on a regular basis. So I was interested whether or not you were already in the hospital.
No, I mean, we'd like to be if that was available. Also, the prisons asked us to come in and do some talks and to hold meetings as well. So that and I think it's to do with obviously COVID. It closed everything down, didn't it? So you know, but we are available, and if you're interested in that, then certainly get in touch with us.
Absolutely. We'd like to hold a meeting if possible. In the hospital, whatever level.
Thank you. I think you do fantastic work, the AA, and I've got a friend who's benefited from your being part of your community. I wanted Yvonne's perspective on this, but I was asking myself why it's come to this meeting in particular. And for example, there are drug and alcohol services already out there in local government. In terms of Yvonne's perspective on when hospital staff pick up on an issue with a patient, this could be alcohol related as to why they're in the hospital. Where do we go next as a hospital?
So we go through 4 months, so it would be unusual for us while we might refer patients to AA. We will go through our 4-month services. So we will have we have connections in CNWL, our community partners, where we would actually be seeking active treatment for individuals. So it's more formalised than the referral.
Yeah, and I think that's what I've learned from personal friendships is the fact that you're not a formal service is immensely helpful. You're so much more approachable, and there's none of this bureaucracy that goes with some of the service engagement with patients. So, yeah, I welcome this being looked at further.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's really good. Perhaps we exactly pick it up for a discussion.
Yeah, just very quick question. Young people, that I consider myself to be anymore for a long time, but young people don't seem to drink quite so much in my experience. Do you find that in your experience too, or is this a problem that we all hope maybe it's starting to diminish, or not?
It's not the amount that you drink, it's what alcohol does to you as a person. It changes us completely. It's like Jekyll and Hyde. You know, outwardly I seem a very rational, normal person, but put a drink inside me, you know, and I'm completely different. And what it does to our heads. It's the stinking thinking that gets us drinking. Alcohol is a symptom of alcoholism, the illness.
So you're seeing, you know, young people still come to
Young
come to the
people,
programme as well.
young people come into the fellowship. The nice standard, this standard 11, suggests that people over the age of 10 should be, you know, who've got problem with alcohol are, you know, should be, you know, be on a 12-step facilitation program.
I haven't noticed any reduction in young people actually, and I'm coming to some of the meetings in Milton Keynes. We've got a good selection, probably about the same amount when I came in 34 years ago. Same amount of people, and I was looking for excuses as to I'm too young.
Yeah.
But no, we're getting plenty. We are getting plenty of people.
Yeah.
It needs to be holistic with AA and the hospitals. Just pick it up on the council's website, get addiction recovery community, support, advice, mentoring, advocacy services, and the drug and alcohol family support. Bringing it all together, there's got to be somewhere where the right level of information and then support for the person. Because everyone will want something slightly different at the core, but you talk about your family circumstances. Some people might actually, we do have quite a few rough sleepers who have drink problems. So it's where to go with you and then to put it all together. So just that sort of thing.
Can I just, sorry to interrupt, can I just make it really clear that it doesn't matter what our problems are, we're alcoholics and we're going to drink. Doesn't matter what the outside circumstances are. If I lived in a palace and had all the money in the world, I still, you know, I might be an alcoholic. Nothing can stop me drinking unless I want to stop drinking myself.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we run the biggest food bank and lunch drop in the city in Wolverton. So we deal with alcoholics daily.
Yeah.
And we use 6 or 7 different rehab centres, our hotel and all that lot. We've had nothing but good reports from AA. So it's, for me, it's another string to a very important set of bows.
Yeah. A lot of people start.
Appreciate what you said.
Yeah, a lot of people start off in rehabs and they transfer. They do part of the program, and then they transfer to AA once they're outside.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think from my understanding, if the AA you can self-refer, you can walk in and your treatment starts straight away.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of the other things that we refer to, you've got to wait for that referral to go through. You've got to wait for an appointment. I've recently been referred for a service. I got a letter telling me there was a 6-year waiting list. If that was for alcoholism, I wouldn't still be alive for 6 years.
We were approached by the YMCA about a year ago now to ask us if we would open a meeting in one of the rooms that they had. And they said, you know, they had 350 beds or something. And some of those people have got problems related to alcoholism or related to alcohol. If we came in there, they'd let us have the room free. We don't take free. We gave them a donation, but we've been doing that now for a year now. We've had, you know, quite a stream of people coming down from, you know, these rooms that they've got up above YMCA, and they're coming in, and some of them are hearing things that they need to hear about what's going on. Again, from the younger people, sometimes, you know, some younger voices. So it's very important. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Sorry, I'm going to, I mean, we could probably talk for another hour or more.
Yeah,
it's extraordinary, amazing presentation. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting us here today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank
you so much. We'll come back again if you want.
Thank you. And I think, I'm going to get colleagues to take things away and see, you know, how we could, obviously we are looking for partnerships, how we, you know, how we can work with partner organisations in the community and stuff, to, you know, improve things. Patients, but also, you know, potentially staff as well, actually, who knows?
Us sitting here today listening to the way you guys conduct business frightened the life out of us.
Well, I've adopted you. I'm very sorry. I just want to see your governance.
That frightens us as well.
Glad to hear it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Can I just leave that stuff there? Is that all
Yes,
right?
please. Thank you, because we will be able to. very much. Dan, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
And
no, don't worry, don't worry. I know that- by the sounds of it.
Take you back in. No worries. I'll use some chocolate bars on. Oh, now. Just think, I think eating and drinking of risk program. I mean, if people are happy, maybe we can move that as well. I know we were going to have some feedback around it. It was a question that came up before Christmas. And again, I think it was under the annual report or something, one of the reports there, but to understand a bit more about the eating and drinking program. So perhaps if we can bring that back if everybody's happy. I'm very conscious of the time and people are beginning to disappear as well. Health Watch, obviously Maxine's not well, so but there is the report there. What I would suggest perhaps is to fire if there are any questions of that, maybe to email Maxine, but if you could copy Tim in, because then that would be very handy in the trust secretariat, so that we know if there are any questions that we need to look at as well or answer. Perhaps.
Yes, so my update is really short. It's not really an update at all. Just welcome to the new governors. I spoke to Diane first time today on screen, and we've got Fran here. First day, first meeting, meeting.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah, welcome. And to just say a goodbye to Kieran. This is last month, so he'll be leaving us up.
Oh, he's just dropped off. Actually, I was going to message saying, I'm very sorry, I've got to go. So yeah, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yvonne, if you're happy as well, maybe with the eating and drinking, we could do the same, just to bring it back.
Yes, we'll bring it back then. Excited to share that with you, and actually I think it's beneficial to the council.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Membership and engagement managers report. I mean, we've got the report here. Oh, there's Louis. Hi, Louis. I guess thank you for still being online. That's extremely helpful. Obviously, I think we've all had a look at it. Thank you. It's a really comprehensive report. If you're happy, I'll just see if there are any questions around it at all. Yeah.
Yes, very happy.
Shirley and then Rachel.
We've got the staff award now, governors, but I just thought it'd be interesting to know what the criteria were that you were being asked to meet with that. So perhaps that could be circulated.
Yeah. Louis, did you got that?
To be confirmed, and I'll let everybody know about that.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great. Actually, it's a great addition to the awards. Yeah, Rachel.
Yeah, mine is one of two questions. My next question will come under point 17. The first one is really about our role as governors in engaging the community. And Alice and I talked about it when I first started about what guidance can we have in terms of what should we be doing out in our communities. And one question is, well, what are our targets? What are we trying to achieve? Because if we don't measure it, we probably won't get there. How should we go about it? What are the key messages we need to be sending out? And how do we bring messages back? What are the key communities we want to reach? And we referred last time to the membership and engagement strategy. So I'm just wondering what the timetable on that is. Because out of that will fall those objectives and things like that, which will then give us a framework for us to develop and say, right, this is what we need to go and do. Because I certainly feel a bit sort of lost about what I'm quite tasked with. So if someone gives me an objective, I'll go and do it. But without that, it's a bit tricky.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, I think because Louis and I, we've been discussing, and we're keeping our fingers crossed about the new trust secretary as well, because that would be really helpful to have that person in post. But we have been talking around, some of the initiatives that we're talking about at board or that we put in our communications, and distilling those into sort of almost it will be bullet points for governors to say, when you're out and about, could you just let people know about this, or could you maybe ask them about these things to help facilitate that sort of engagement and discussion. In terms of the strategy, Louis, I haven't caught up with Jacob. Have you got an update at all?
No, I have no update yet. As far as I'm aware, it's not been signed off yet. So right. I will keep chasing.
I mean, take that, maybe put that down as an action and actually just see what the time frame is for that. I know it's people have been, it's been quite hectic during the winter. So
sure.
So yes, and in terms of I think it would be very helpful, particularly from the executive team, to have some of those key messages that they're really keen to get out. I mean, obviously, a lot of it is around, you know, our radiotherapy. We can talk, you know, we can give you a list of all the things that we're developing on the site, you know, and also if, you know, when you meet people if they're visiting, all this, you know, all the stuff that's up on the workman, and you'll be able to say, well, that's the electricity supply, you know, to make it easy. So, Andrea.
Yeah, I suggested to me a while back that certainly I was going to talk to my parish clerk, because they do a parish newsletter that goes into every home in the parish. And I haven't done that yet, but I will. And I think if it's about messaging, then I'm fairly sure, because parish magazines are always looking for content that's relevant. You know, if each representative of an area spoke to their parish and asked whether they could have a, you know, a couple of lines in the newsletter, and some of the parish newsletters go out monthly, some of them go out quarterly, some of them go out bi-monthly, but you know that they're not a weekly thing. So yeah,
but get that information in there as well,
and it will get it in more houses than you would otherwise.
Louis, can you, if you've got a note of that, because that is something. I mean, you've already linked in, I think, haven't you? You and certainly when Kwame was here, did a lot of visits to parishes and getting in touch. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. And even if we just, you know, we start that, if it started on a small scale and then escalated, I think possibly. And we might, I mean,
so yeah, Kwame before he left asked me if I'd do an article along with Fran, that we could talk to the town clerk of the Wolverton Town Council and get it into the town magazine.
Of course you can. So that's done then. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, so yeah, we can take that away, and then we've got the action. We'll try and find out where the strategy's got to, because it will, yeah, that will help when we know what the organisational one is, because then you get the plans for governors as well. Great. Sorry, I will need to just push on now. Any motions and questions from Council of Governors? Rachel, did you say you got something?
Yes, I did, I'm afraid. It's really again about the role of governors, which we've talked a lot about this meeting. But for me, one of the things that I find difficult is I don't know, our job is to hold the NEDs to account. And yes, I don't know what's on your minds. I simply have no visibility on what you think are the key issues, because I can't find that. I can find what's on the agenda, and then 3 months later I can see the minutes. Quite often it says the minutes, this was accepted and noted. But there's nothing that from the NEDs that say, these are our 6 points that we're really concerned about. So for us as governors, it's quite difficult for us to hold to ask sensible questions. So that's one thing that I'm not getting. I don't think we get visibility on those issues that are concerning you, which we really need to. Our job is not to question the executive and not to say to the hospital, why aren't you doing such and such? That's not our job. Well, I think we're clear about that. Our job is to talk to the NEDs and say, what assurance have you got that you know, they are actually looking into patient safety or whatever it might be. So for instance, and if I look at this meeting here and other meetings, I think, well, what I'd really like to do, today we've looked at, we've had reports from on capital leadership and inclusion in HR. We haven't had anything on finance and KPIs, which is fine, but where is the forum for us to question the NEDs in this 3-month period to say, by the way, in your report it says 1,141 open cases, open RTT places, say now, and that has increased. And the text in the report says there are robust recovery plans in place. Now that quote was exactly the same as happened 3 months ago. Robust recovery plans are in place, and yet the figures have gone up. Now my job is not to say to the hospital what's going on, but it's to say to NEDs, what assurance have you got about that recovery plan? Is it robust, and are you happy with it? So I'm just saying,
or is it realistic?
Yeah, exactly. It's just literally to ask the question of you, not. It's so. I think we need that forum somehow, because there are plenty. I mean, I've got about 5, but we haven't had time here or space to be able to ask just questions what assurance have you got, or are you happy? Or we've just noticed the disparity and complaints seem to have gone up. Are you comfortable? And the other last question I'm just going to say is, how well do you understand the performance of Milton Keynes versus its peer group on key areas such as RTT pathways? We know how it is versus the emergency department, but how happy are you regarding diagnostic test rates relative to your peer group? How happy are you about nice, oh God, I can't read my writing, but you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It would just be nice to ask Monitor those questions to ensure that you're on it.
And I think it's all of that gets discussed at the meeting.
Yeah.
The point I was going to make is the agendas used to have slots on, but not every time finance.
Yeah, we have had reports back from committees, yeah, up until before Christmas.
Perhaps the exec and then would come, because once we get into the depth of some of the detail of something, that we're going to want to be able to reverse in lens and making something what we're seeking is assurance and reassurance in some sort of efficiency going forward. But we did use them. You know, I'm talking probably pre-pandemic. Yeah, it's lots of corners or around the interaction with.
Yeah.
It's okay. So what I was going to say is what my suggestion is, from my view, the BAF, the assurance framework that we use, is where we with the executive get together, and especially viewing it as a collective worry list. And it's quite a good place to start, because what we've done just recently is brought it down. So those things we're worried about over the next 6 months, and those things we're worried about over the next 3 years. And that gives you a strategic framework within which to say the data I'm receiving, is that something that isn't on the worry list, or is it on the worry list? So it gets to a point, what are we thinking about? So, you know, what immediate concerns have we got? Well, we've got concerns about the funding regime. Will we get the electric curve? This is in the 6 month horizon. Got concerns about the doctors' strikes, you know, et cetera, et cetera. We've not got concerns in the short term about recruitment and staffing. We've got concerns about recruitment and staffing over 3 years because of the points you made about retention. Have we got a long-term plan where we're going to go? So that's quite a useful place. Second thing to do, how do we tie that into the actions and what we're doing? The key documents that do that, in my opinion, and we're still working on getting them better, is the performance report, where we look at statistics and we look at them in the context of statistical significance. So have we got trends? Because actually we could be really careful about it. That's a big number, or that's a bit different than last week. Well, that's interesting, but is it of any significance to anybody? So you need to set things in context, and you also need to set particular items in the context and the environment of the hospital. Yeah, so you need to link data together. If that's up, what does that mean about this? What does that mean about that? Overall, in my assessment, the hospital's doing quite well in terms of the fact that it's dealing with increased activity. I.e., there's more activity coming through. Roughly speaking, at about 120%. But we're not getting the waiting list down. And that's the issue. So we can say we're doing a good job, and actually that's why we're going for it. We're still not hitting those waiting lists as much as we'd like to. But then in terms of finances, if it gives you some reassurance, putting the impact of strikes on the side, which we have not factoring in, we are one of the few hospitals that will break even, putting the impact on strikes on the side. So those things do get looked at, and this was not me skipping over and trying to answer your question. It's just to give you a comfort fact and point in the direction. And so I think there are documents around that will begin to answer your questions, and that we're taking you through them, so because they're not easy to understand.
No. And of course, a lot of it, is obviously there's the board reports as well. That's all the stuff we're looking at as well. So yeah, I totally understand. I think Mark just wanted to come in.
Yeah, I'm grateful to Rachel for raising it, because we did have a discussion, didn't we, at the informal, which I thought was extremely helpful evening. And I think it's fair to say at the right place now, where we should be having, I think there's an agreement that we should be having some kind of quarterly, or 2, 3, 4 times a year, a set piece with all of the NEDs kind of in front of the Council of Governors. And this is what I've been used to for the last 2 times 8. in 16 years where, well, actually no, only 8 of those years was a foundation trust, where the 6 of those years was a foundation trust, where the governors did go before, the NEDs did go before the governors and have a kind of Q&A. And it was never, in my experience, adversarial. It was about us helping you and you helping us, and then enabling the NEDs to be more effective in challenging the executive team. And I'm not sensing after that dinner in wherever it was a few weeks ago, I'm not sensing any resistance to having some kind of 2, 3, 4 times a year the NEDs line up in front of you and we have a formally minuted discussion.
But to be honest, it's really helpful if we're on the same page. Because if we're focused on X, Y, and Z and putting our efforts into that, and somebody comes over here and asks, can I talk about this? And I'm thinking, well, I don't see that as an issue at all. And you're getting distracted away from the main focus. So the sooner we get onto a common page, the more useful our time will be spent collectively.
Yeah. And then the community feedback, this is the other thing, we know the engagement, because obviously, you know, you look at the functions of governors as well, that your constituencies, your engagement, because when we're talking about what we're focusing on, and you might be hearing something different, you know, in your communities that actually probably needs some focus on, you know, for a different reason. Obviously that helps us in terms of our questions as well. Shirley, I'll make you the last one because we
just want to make the point that although we see the back, actually nobody ever explained it to us for any of the other board papers. So most people probably don't have sufficient background to understand what anything is.
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, as I say, with that meeting we're going to have in February around development and, you know, training and all that sort of stuff.
But I mean, before we
need to know these things,
you know, what you're suggesting, we need to have done that basic thing of understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where our respective roles do vary in the governance of NHS England, and I think that's fine, that's appropriate.
Yeah.
But I'm sensing quite strongly that you as governors need more face time with NEDs, and frankly, it wouldn't hurt us to have that as well. So it was helpful of Heidi to mention that it was like that before COVID.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's fine. And also, I think it's the other thing is, you know, us being clear is around our role. You know, our roles are different, but they're complementary. So I think the sooner we have that clarity, and you know, we can set up these mechanisms. I think that would be great. Certainly, my colleagues are not. So they're
just in terms of the meeting on the 7th, that wasn't in my diary, so I don't know.
No, that's
just to ensure that everyone, as many people can be there as possible. It might be good that goes out through the usual channels. That I think it's just an email from Cheryl.
It's just from Cheryl, but maybe if we can come through, let's go and as we need to go on. If we got the central hub at the secretariat, and if we came about that day.
Obviously, it's an important meeting. Yeah. Good as we can all be there.
Yeah. In terms of where we meet and that sort of thing, I think it will. Well, we can get that sorted.
Yeah, but nonetheless,
that's I'm elected. Yeah.
Well,
no. But I'm just thinking the layout.
It wasn't in my diary, so it'd be good if other governors have it. It's not ideal.
It's not. That's where it is. So let's see. Let's see what we can arrange. Yeah.
Perfect. Right.
Brilliant. Yes. Sorry, I had hoped to try and get it back to 6, but there we go. That presentation was amazing, so I really didn't want to interrupt you, but it was so important. What they were saying was so important. Thank you all very much. I'm going to go on business.
Before you go, is there an application in the room that if we're trying to get a reappointment of you within 3 months, we need to appoint the commission? Yes. So how are we going to do it? Under this meeting?
Right. Let me, yes.
I've